Okay, yeah, so what we're going to do today is we are going to start with some practice questions, okay? Just data analysis, nothing too new, nothing too different. Yeah, and related to Unit 2 content. So like I said, we are going to work under time conditions. As you can see, the first question, I'm going to give you 5 minutes for that one. So just give me a second while I put my timer on. And I'll pause the recording as well at that point so the recording doesn't end up being extremely long. Okay, so 5 minutes. Hope everyone has the exercise book and a pen in front of them. So I'll give you like a few seconds to hurry up and organize yourself if not. So the first question is a bar graph. Don't worry about these bars here, the ones that look like long eyes. Those are what we call as error bars, but they're not important for us to analyze. So don't worry about those little, just look at the main bar graph, okay? Don't worry about the other bars there. Okay, so it's just showing you the proportion of children aged 5 to 14 who meet the physical and screen-based activity guidelines on all 7 days by age group. So who meet the physical and screen-based activity guidelines, okay? So the number of people who meet, like, you can only watch 30 minutes of TV a day, the number of people who meet that, okay, in terms of a percentage. All right, so yeah. All right, let's get started. So let me put my timer on. Okay, guys, your time starts now. Okay, so this is the sample answer. So a lot of your answers in the chat are really good or very similar. So again, like I said, you don't always have to be super exact with your numbers. Just try to make an estimate there. Obviously, if your estimate is way off the chart, like if you're blue by somewhere here and you say like 40%, then obviously it's wrong, but 32, 33, you can just make an estimate there. Okay, of 5 to 9-year-old children met the physical activity guidelines, which is a significantly higher rate compared to children aged 10 to 14, where only 14% met the physical activity guidelines. So remember that the question asks you physical activity, so you're only really looking at this graph here. Okay, you've got 3 sets of graphs, but we're only really looking at the first one there. And it kind of becomes a bit like more confusing because you've got 3 different colors there. Yeah, you've got the orange one, you've got the light blue, and you've got the teal colored one. So you have to see which specific age groups the question is asking for. It's only asking for 5 to 9, which is the blue, and 10 to 14, which is the lighter blue. So you're only really looking at this portion of the graph. Oh my God, that looks like a boot. Okay. So yeah, that's basically what we're looking at. Okay. We're only really looking at the those 2 portions of the graph, and we're just following our checklist as we always do. Okay, this is more of a comparison question, which most of you are pretty good at anyway. It's just the trend questions that we need to work on a bit more. But yeah, any questions about this particular question or any confusions before we move on, just let me know in the chat box. I'll give you a minute or something to have a look, and I'll just read one more answer in the chat box and then we'll move on to the next question. Okay, so let's move on to the next question, which is part B of the same graph, but this is more of a content-related question. So describe one impact of not meeting physical activity guidelines on a child's physical and social health and well-being. So we're looking at 2 dimensions here, and it's worth 4 marks. So each one is worth 2 marks. That means you're not just going to state a physical impact, but you're going to explain it a little bit more. Okay, so you're not just going to give me dot points or list out things, you're going to give a bit of explanation here. So I'm going to put 4 minutes on the clock now because that's what this question should require. And your 4 minutes starts now. Yeah, so this is just, like I said, just one sample answer. There are many ways you could have approached this question. So if you've got a different way you've approached it, just let me know in the chat and I can check if that's still good. So it says children who don't meet physical activity guidelines are at risk of becoming overweight, which we know body weight, having a high body weight for your height is an example of how physical health can be affected, right? So it says which can impact physical health and well-being, as low physical activity means less calories are used and a higher risk for fat getting stored. Furthermore, as physical activity can be an opportunity for children to form new friendships, example through sports teams or clubs, not meeting physical activity guidelines may decrease social health and well-being as well. So that's just a 4-mark answer. You can see that it is a bit more specific than if the question was worth 2 marks, and that's where the 4 marks comes from you being more specific and from you talking about the how. So if you noticed in these 2 answers that we have here, there's a big emphasis on how social health and well-being is affected, or how physical health is affected if the child doesn't meet the physical activity guidelines, okay? Not if they do, if they don't, because the question says not. Okay, so how does not meeting the physical activity guidelines affect a child's physical health and well-being as well as their social health and well-being? So we talked about less opportunity to form friendships through teammates and that kind of stuff, and less likely to be able to use up excess calories and thus likely to store fat on the body, which is again showing low physical health and well-being. You could have even talked about the fact that with social health and well-being, you can talk about the fact that being as a part of a sports team teaches you a lot of skills like negotiation, compromise, teamwork. Okay, all of those are important for a person's, social health and well-being. For physical health and well-being, you could have even talked about the fact that a child who meets physical activity guidelines is less likely to have abnormalities in their bodily function later on. They're less likely to have maybe high levels of cholesterol, or they're less likely to have high blood glucose levels, because them exercising and them meeting the physical activity guidelines helps them to keep those biomarkers or those biological functions under control at a normal level. So again, there's a multitude of ways you could have approached this question. But yeah, this is just a straightforward and simple answer, okay, which still gets you the marks. Remember, it's not about being complex and bringing in really complicated stuff. It's just about being correct and accurate and just communicating those ideas in a clear way. So there's a few answers here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you guys maybe a minute to just read through this and compare it with your own answer. And in the meantime, I'll just quickly read through the answers that have come in the chat. All righty, let's move on to the next question now. All right, now we're looking at a line graph, and we're looking at our favorite type of question, the trend questions. Okay, so we've got part A is a trend question, and it's only worth 1 mark. So usually in the 1 mark trend questions, just include the year as well. Even if it's only worth 1 mark, just include the year anyway. It's always good to include the year. B, justify using 1 reasons. Yeah, and then B is more of a provide a reason for why the data is the way it is. So B is more of a using your brain, all questions use your brain. I mean, using your knowledge of health, okay, to answer part B. So part A is looking at the data specifically. Part B is looking at the data, but not including the data in your answer, but thinking about why the data is changing over time. So actual reasons, okay? And altogether it says 4 minutes. So we are going to give you guys, or I'm going to give you 4 minutes on the clock. So your time starts now. Okay, so yeah, basically this is a line graph, and it shows us 3 different color lines. So one is for boys, the lighter blue represents girls, and then the orange one represents infants as a whole, I guess, like the total. So basically what we're looking at here is we're looking at a trend or a pattern that we can see. Okay, a trend is just a pattern that we see across the data, and it's different from a comparison question because with a trend, we're looking at how the data changes over a large or relatively large time period. So we're looking at from 1998 to 2017. That's a lot of years. Okay, that's more than 10 years time. So we're looking at the pattern in the health issue across that time period. Okay, so it's worth 1 mark. So all you have to talk about is any trend that you can see that's obvious from the data there. So I'll just show you guys the sample answer for part A. So you could say it is clear that infant death rates across all age groups have been steadily decreasing, but there are also other answers. So let me just get a little text box and write the other possible answers. You could have even said between 1998, to 2017, boys show a higher infant death rate per 1,000 live births compared to girls. Okay. Or the opposite is also true. So that's one answer. Or you could have just said the opposite. You could have said between 1998 to 2017, girls showed a lower infant death rate per 1,000 live births. So I'm just getting this information from the y-axis and the caption or the label on the y-axis compared to boys. Okay, so that could be what you say. Overall, though, over time, you could say there, yeah, all of the genders are decreasing over time. So whether you're a boy or whether you're a girl, from 1998 to 2017, all of the death rates are decreasing. Did I say increasing before? I meant to say decreasing. Are decreasing or declining over time. They're showing a decline, and that's what this sample answer is about. Okay. So yeah, a range of ways that you can answer that particular question there. So that's basically for part A. Part B is a reason. Okay, so you have to think about any reason, just using your general knowledge, your health knowledge. What could be a reason why the infant death rates have changed? Now, we know obviously that the direction of the trend or the pattern of change is a decline. Okay, we're not seeing an increase, we're seeing a decline there. So why have the infant death rates declined from 1998 to 2017? That's basically the question we're looking at for part B. There's many different answers, and you've got a bunch here in part B. So one reason could be advancements in medicine. So you could say that more infants are getting immunized, okay, compared to 1998. More infants are getting immunized now. You could also talk about the fact that parents are a little bit more knowledgeable about what is healthy and what is not healthy. For example, back in the 90s, some parents used to let their babies sleep on their tummies, which is actually quite dangerous. It led to a condition called SIDS, sudden infant death syndrome, which is basically caused when an infant sleeps on their belly or their tummy and they actually lose they're not able to breathe after some time. So that led to a lot of deaths in the 80s and 90s in Australia. So a lot of parents are actually more knowledgeable on that. There is a lot of awareness and education around looking after your infant, protecting them from harm. So all of those are like good reasons. As long as the reason that you mentioned makes sense and it is accurate and can be applied to Australia and to Australian infants, then that would be correct. That would be a good answer. Okay. So, yep, that's the answer for that one there. All right, so what I'm going to do is, let me just see, I think we've got, whoops, just get rid of the text there. Okay, and how many more do we have? Oops, sorry, we've got 2 more. What we'll do is we'll probably do the other 2 on Thursday, just so we don't overload it too much today. But yeah, so far, if you're kind of on the right track and you kind of understand what we're doing, these are the kinds of questions we continue to give you guys in SACS and in your practice materials. These are the kind of questions you will also encounter next year. Okay, data analysis, like I said, it goes across unit 1 to 4, health and human. So yeah, I'm not going to keep you guys too much longer. What I want you guys to do now for the rest of the period is finish your chapter 8 questions. Now, chapter 8 exercise book collection will happen, not today. I will be collecting your chapter 8 exercise books on Thursday when I have you guys for the live session. After that, I'll be hoping that you submit it by 4 p.m. that day. So I'll make a due workbox for that. Now, what you can do, I know a lot of you do your exercise book, or almost all of you do your exercise book questions in your exercise book. What you can do is just take pictures. Now, chapter 8 is only 3 spreads, 8.2, 8.3, 8.4. So just take pictures of your exercise book and just upload them to due work. Or you can even just scan if you've got a scanner as a part of your printer or something, you could do that as well. If you have already started typing up your questions and that's how you do them, then that's perfect. You can just email that to me directly, or just upload that onto the due work directly. Okay, but that's the due date. Don't forget, chapter 8 questions are going to be checked on Thursday. By 4 p.m, they've got to be in the due work box on the class page. Okay, cool. So that's basically it for today. Yes.